Story is an often misunderstood aspect of fighting games, treated poorly by the community who play it and an afterthought to the people who make it. While most fighting game stories are globe-trotting anime adventures or poorly thought out attractions for casuals, fighting game lore is a fascinating thing to some and an embarrassment to others. I happen to fall into both categories, so join me as I regale you with some of the many stories told to us from fighting games. The King of Fighters is an interesting series, collecting some of SNK's best and most popular franchises and putting them all into a 3-on-3 tournament-based fighter. While it never reached the worldwide popularity of its rival Street Fighter, The King of Fighters is still a celebrated aspect of fighting game history, being especially popular in China and numerous South American countries. One thing that fans have always praised The King of Fighters for is its stories. Infamous sagas spreading across multiple years and games, some of the best narratives in the entire fighting game genre belong to SNK, and KOF in particular. As KOF moves into the third dimension, it also moves into a new saga starring the latest hero in the series, Shun'ei. With The King of Fighters 15 finally here, it's time to conclude the crazy world of KOF as we reach its latest chapter. If you're new to the channel, I recommend watching the previous videos I did on the events of the KOF series, as this video will be made under the assumption that you have watched it. If you haven't watched it, feel free to click the link at the top of the video and check it out before coming back. It has been some time since the events of the King of Fighters 14 tournament that saw the Russian billionaire Antonov's venue destroyed at the hands of a mysterious entity dubbed Verse. Using powers similar to the ones displayed by Verse, newcomer Shun'ei and his teammates on the China team Meitenkun and Tung Fu Ryu destroyed the cosmic being and restored peace to the competition. With Verse having been defeated as quickly as it had appeared, numerous KOF competitors take interest in the being and begin investigating where it came from. But that interest soon turns to concern when reports come in of deceased fighters from previous tournaments having been resurrected due to Verse's defeat. When another KOF tournament is soon announced, this time hosted by Anastasia, an acquaintance of Antonov's, the suspicion of another appearance by Verse occurring, as well as the possible interference of those who are now back from the dead, causes several competitors from prior tournaments to begin preparing for the next KOF. 13 teams enter the King of Fighters 15 tournament which, while less than the previous competition, features team formations that are greatly changed from the 14 tournament. Having realised that his age is beginning to hold him back, Tung Fu Ryu surprises his students Shun'ei and Meitenkun when he informs them that he will not be joining them in the new tournament. Wanting Kyo Kusanagi to join them, Tung Fu Ryu asks Kyo's father Saishu Kusanagi to request Kyo join their team and help guide his students, mainly Shun'ei, who's still unsure about his mysterious powers. Upon arriving in Japan to meet Kyo, Shun'ei and Meitenkun are surprised when they are instead greeted by none other than Kyo's old friend and occasional teammate Benimaru Nikaido. Having initially tended to sit out this KOF, Benimaru was asked by Kyo to take his place on the China team due to his own obligations to someone else. Though initially reluctant to team up, Shun'ei, Meitenkun and Benimaru Nikaido warm up to each other and enter the tournament as the Shun'ei team. While Benimaru takes care of Shun'ei and Meitenkun, Kyo instead teams up with his old nemesis Iori Yagami and acquaintance Chizuru Kagura as Team Sacred Treasures. The team is formed on the request of Chizuru in order to protect the Orochi seal from being opened by any resurrected members of the Hakushu. Though reluctant to team up with each other, Kyo and Iori agree to Chizuru's request under the promise that she will not interfere in their business once the tournament is over. With Orochi having already been resealed shortly after its resurrection, 3 of its followers brought back to life alongside it managed to escape the holders of the 3 sacred treasures' notice and to blend back into the world. Once again juggling their loyalty to Orochi and their music band, Yashiro Nanakase, Shermie and Chris reform their infamous team for the first time in years and enter the tournament as the Orochi team. The Fatal Fury team returns to the tournament once again unchanged, consisting of Terry Bogard, his brother Andy Bogard and friend Joe Higashi. The 3 decide to choose a goal they want to achieve should they win the tournament, with Joe in particular wanting to go on a date with Lily, the sister of Geese Howard's right-hand man Billy Kane. The Art of Fighting team now consists of Ryo Sakazaki, Robert Garcia and their friend King. After harshly kicking Yuri Sakazaki from their team after she put off her training to work at the Kyokugen Ryo family barbecue restaurant, Ryo requests King join him and Robert in her place, to which she accepts, despite hoping Ryo would ask her on a date instead. Having been ditched by both Ryo and King, Yuri Sakazaki and Mai Shiranui are suddenly met by Athena Asamiya, who appears to be taking a break from her usual Psycho Soldier team. When Athena begins to request something of Yuri and Mai, the two erroneously assume she wants to team up with them in KOF, and force the superstar idol to form a new team with them, dubbed Team Super Heroine. After being hired to investigate Geese Howard's butler Hein, Blue Mary meets up with her old friend and fellow agent Vanessa to discuss their findings, with Blue Mary discovering that Gangil's lover Luong has been meeting with Hein in secret. Blue Mary is shocked, however, when Vanessa brings along none other than Luong herself, who was broken off from Gangil and Kim Kap-Wan after they retreated into the mountains to train. Blue Mary is immediately suspicious of her intentions, but Vanessa vouches for Luong and offers to include her in their team for the upcoming KOF tournament. Blue Mary is incredibly reluctant to accept Luong as a teammate, but eventually agrees under the condition that all three ladies will help each other when the tournament concludes. After toasting their new team, Blue Mary, Vanessa and Luong enter KOF as the secret agent team. After going on the run following rumours spreading about his involvement in his arena's destruction at the last tournament, Antonov and his loyal subordinate Yakov decide to form their own wrestling promotion after receiving help from Misha and his family as thanks for Antonov saving them in the last tournament. Upon setting up the Galaxy Anton Wrestling Federation, Antonov hires Mexican wrestlers Ramon and King of Dinosaurs as his first two wrestlers. With the two having split off from Angel, Antonov decides to enter KOF with them as Team GAW in order to hopefully gain back the honour, respect and money he lost. The Ikari Warriors return to the tournament unchanged from their previous iterations, once again consisting of Leona Hydern, Ralph Jones and Clark Still, who were ordered by their commanding officer Hydern to observe the tournament and monitor Shunei due to his powers heavily resembling Versus. After an argument between K-Dash and Cooler Diamond explodes into an intense family drama, Cooler packs up her belongings and flees from K-Dash and Maxima's safe house in the middle of the night. Upon realising that she has run away, K-Dash and Maxima use the aid of the Ikaris to track down Cooler's whereabouts and discover that she's been kidnapped by none other than Angel and an unknown yet familiar man named Cronin McDougal, who appears to have an intense hatred of K-Dash. Having picked up Cooler while out on her own, Angel and Cronin aim to keep Cooler as a hostage, though Cooler chooses to look at her situation as her voluntarily staying with the two due to her spat with K-Dash, with her even willing to look past her hatred of Angel thanks to her actions during the 2001 tournament. Upon hearing of the new KOF tournament and K-Dash's involvement in it, Cronin, Angel and Cooler Diamond team up together as Team Cronin in order to confront K-Dash and his comrades. Upon discovering Cooler's location as well as the existence of Cronin, K-Dash and Maxima along with K-Dash's sister Whip decide to take the risk of falling into whatever trap Team Cronin might have planned and enter the tournament as Team K-Dash in order to deal with Cronin and bring Cooler home. After Kukri helped Elizabeth Blanktorch track down the location of the newly resurrected Ash Crimson at the end of the previous tournament, Ash and Elizabeth are reunited, but due to Ash's erasure of himself and Psyche at the end of the 13 tournament, Elizabeth is the only one that remembers who he is. Kukri requests that Ash and Elizabeth team up with him in the new tournament in order to repay the debt they owe him. Though they have their own doubts about Kukri's intentions, the two accept and form the Ash team. A new team debuts for the first time in the tournament and instantly makes waves throughout the competition. Isla, a young orphan from Chile, is a prominent graffiti artist who uses a pair of purple disembodied hands she has named Amanda to perform her craft in wow the crowds that come to see her. Though it is unknown how they know each other, the Ikari's own Hayden and a mysterious woman known as Dolores, who has also been resurrected by Verse after perishing while trying to save her student Kukri many years ago, take an interest in Isla due to Amanda's presence, with the floating hands being eerily similar to both Verse's power as well as Shunei's. Isla holds an intense dislike of Shunei and is determined to enter the tournament in order to wipe the smile off of Shunei's face. Together, Isla, Hayden and Dolores enter the tournament as the Isla team. With the 13 teams gathered, Clemence Bellamy announces the start of the King of Fighters 15 tournament as the various teams prepare themselves for the upcoming competition. On their way to the tournament, Kyo meets up with Benimaru, Shunei and Maiden-kun, where he teases Benimaru for his new role of looking after the two young fighters. Shunei and Maiden-kun look around the city in awe, but are interrupted by Isla, who bluntly vows that she'll be the one to beat Shunei in the tournament. Shunei is confused by Isla's attitude, but before the two can clash they are broken up by Dolores, who draws Isla back. Isla reminds Dolores that she calls the shots for their team before leaving, as Dolores takes one last look at Shunei before following her. As the tournament fully begins, the rival team gather in the KOF stadium at night, where Hayden asks Dolores if she's sure it will appear at the venue. Dolores is confident that it will appear at the appointed time due to KOF being the perfect place to draw Verse out. Isla is confused why Verse would show up at the tournament, as Dolores explains the nature of it based on the teachings handed down to her. Normally known as Reverse, the being was never meant to appear in their world, but was allowed to do so because of the actions wrought by Ash Crimson when he erased himself and his ancestor Psyche at the end of the 13 tournament. With Ash having caused distortions in the space between worlds, Dolores theorizes that it's only inevitable that Reverse appears. She states, however, that with Isla and Shunei being amplified spectres, Reverse can be sealed away if the two work together. Isla is appalled at the idea of working with Shunei and boasts that she will be the one to beat Shunei and Reverse should it appear. Dolores respects Isla's courage, but states that Reverse cannot be destroyed and that their only option is to return it to its home world. Haida tells the two that despite this new knowledge their objective hasn't changed and that they must drive Reverse out of their world. Isla agrees, though she's only interested in defeating Shunei. Dolores decides to stay behind in the arena and investigate it more, as Haida tells Isla to move out, which infuriates the young leader who despises being talked down to by adults. As they leave, Dolores quietly hopes for Isla and Shunei to use their powers and spirits to return the world to normal. The tournament continues on as the remaining competitors eventually reach the grand finals. Multiple teams gather in the arena for the finals, but only the Shunei and Isla teams qualify. The two teams clash in a dramatic fight, but Shunei is able to defeat Isla and secure the victory for his team. The crowd and Clemens Bellamy celebrate the Shunei team's victory in the tournament as the rival team recover from their loss. While Dolores gathers herself on the floor of the arena, she is approached by Kukri, who asks her if she has any more lies to feed him. Dolores notes how much Kukri has grown since her death and deduces that Kukri has figured out her plans given his arrival at the arena. Kukri admonishes Dolores for pulling the strings of her plan since before she took him on as a student. Dolores tells Kukri to remain calm as everything has happened according to her plan. Dolores then turns around to see Isla, who is beginning to be affected by the power used to bring about Reverse's appearance. Isla is unable to control the power and explodes into a purple fog before collapsing. The fog forms into a being resembling Isla before vanishing in front of the crowd's eyes. The crowd and Clemens Bellamy are confused at the sudden appearance and disappearance of the being as they realise that the fighters gathered at the arena have also vanished alongside it. The Shunei, Isla, Ash and Sacred Treasures teams find themselves in an alternate reality of the arena where the crowd is absent and the sky is covered in a red and black haze. The teams gathered find themselves in front of the being, Reverse, but before anyone can do anything, Shunei begins reacting violently to it. Maiden-kun and Benimaru watch in horror as Shunei struggles to control the power, but before he loses control like Isla, Shunei calms down and discovers that he's being hugged from behind by Maiden-kun, who tells Shunei that he and Benimaru are right there with him and that they'll all get through it together. Benimaru affirms Maiden-kun's promise to stick with Shunei, telling him that he can do it. Shunei manages to overcome the power with the help of his friends and thanks them. The three then notice Haida and Dolores standing over Isla, who is unconscious following Reverse's arrival. They rush over to Isla's side, but Haida tells them that she won't wake up. Kyo, Iori and Chizuru observe Reverse as Kyo notes that it looks just like Verse from the previous tournament and that only one person could have messed with the Orochi seal. Chizuru agrees, though she senses that Reverse is quite different in nature than Orochi. Iori, however, simply states that all they need to do is to turn Reverse to ashes, to which Kyo agrees, though he makes sure Iori knows that he still pisses him off. Kukri criticizes Dolores' plan and asks how she plans on handling this. Dolores admits that her calculations might have been off, but promises to think of an alternative plan. Kukri questions if Dolores is going to die again for their sake, and tells her to think of what it feels like to be the person left behind. Elizabeth tells Dolores that it is their responsibility to confront Reverse, but Ash wonders if defeating it will undo his resurrection. Elizabeth and Kukri admonish Ash for thinking of himself and remind him that he was the one that caused all of this. Ash laughs at his teammates' reactions, but notes that having so many able fighters ready might be overdoing things a bit. Dolores returns to Isla and tells Shunei that he and Isla are amplified spectres, bearers of powers that resonate with Reverse. Isla excelled at absorbing the intense emotions of the people around her and amplifying them, which allowed Isla and Reverse's spirits to become intertwined. Shunei asks Dolores if they can save Isla by defeating Reverse, to which Dolores tells him that she assumes so and asks him to do the honours of fighting it. Shunei, Maiden-kun and Benimaru agree to fight Reverse and confront the being in the ominous arena. Despite Reverse's intense powers, Shunei and the others are able to defeat the being. Reverse begins to explode into an array of light beams as it mutters the name Otamaraga before exploding into the sky. Meanwhile, Isla sits inside her own consciousness as she reflects on her past and dislike of Shunei. Isla laments on how she vowed to use Amanda to protect her fellow orphans, but was forced to deal with the interference of adults looking out for their own interests. Upon seeing Shunei, however, and the adults and friends that looked out for him, Isla assumed he was purposely trying to anger her, but she soon realised it wasn't anger she felt towards Shunei, but jealousy. Isla rises to her feet and promises to not let things end here after losing herself to Reverse's powers, as she eventually comes to in the ominous arena. The arena is soon filled with an odd howl, as Dolores recognises the sound as coming from a being called Otamaraga. Large crystals begin to form throughout the arena, crystallizing everything. A large portal opens in the middle of the arena as a nebulous void is seen on the other side. A mysterious shape appears from within the void as Dolores realizes that it is indeed Otamaraga, the mother goddess and the culmination of the truth Dolores' people sought. The orb takes the form of a crystallized humanoid woman, and Shunei questions how they can even deal with it. Dolores tells Shunei and Isla that the only way to seal Otamaraga in her rightful resting place is by the co-annihilation between the goddess and an amplified spectre. Haiden refuses to let Isla sacrifice herself, but she promises to not let anything annihilate her. Maiden-kun and Benimaru are concerned that Shunei will disappear, but Shunei vows to not let a lousy prediction stop them. Maiden-kun and Benimaru agree to take on the goddess together with Shunei as the three confront Otamaraga in the crystallized arena. Despite Otamaraga's otherworldly powers and incredible strength, Shunei, Maiden-kun and Benimaru are able to defeat it. As the goddess is sucked back into the void it came from, the suction of the void resealing threatens to trap everyone else as well. Dolores tells everyone that they are observing complete nothingness that nullifies even time and space. Otamaraga is finally sent back to the void, but soon after she vanishes, a large volume of tendrils shoot out of the void and grab onto Isla. As she is pulled into the void of nothingness, Shunei chases after Isla and leaps in after her. The two manage to grab onto each other, with Isla complimenting Shunei on his courage. The two promise not to let go, but Isla loses her grip. Shunei, fearing that Isla is lost in the nothingness of the void, looks away, but soon realizes that both Amanda and Shunei's hands have grabbed onto her and pull her back towards him. The two grab onto each other again, where they are soon transported back into their world and back onto the floor of the roaring arena. Maiden-kun and Benimaru are glad that everyone got back safe, as Shunei sees Isla standing awkwardly behind him. Haiden receives a report that himself and the other competitors vanished immediately after Reverse appeared, and wonders how they returned. Dolores theorizes that they most likely have Isla and Shunei's powers to thank, as the counteraction of their powers during their co-annihilation expelled everyone from the crystallized arena. Haiden wishes to return to HQ and gather all of the details of the recent events, but decides to wait as he watches Isla and Shunei greet each other. Isla apologizes for being so antagonistic towards Shunei, but she playfully refuses to tell him why she was angry with him in the first place before smiling at him. Relieved at their success in saving Isla and the world, Shunei removes his headphones, no longer needing them to help master his power. With the chaotic events of the KOF 15 tournament having concluded, the fighters gathered eventually return to their normal lives. With their commander safe, the Ikari warriors set up a command base in the now empty stadium as they begin investigating the events that transpired. Ralph, Clark, Leona and Whip report to Haiden and inform him that observation of Shunei was set up for 24 hours but was closed down after Shunei showed no signs of rampage following Otamaraga's sealing. Clark notes that Shunei was really livened up following the fight and that even though he did lose control the once, he was quickly saved by his friends. Leona ponders over the nature of the amplified spectres and their power being unlike Orochi, before stating that she feels as if there won't be any more rampages going forward. Clark then notes that Leona remains stable throughout the tournament, despite voicing her concerns about her Orochi blood becoming unstable. Leona says that she's still concerned about losing control of her power, but is confident that even if it were to awaken, her comrades would stop her. Saying that this confidence allows her to fight without fear and with all her strength, Leona's comrades are touched by her words. Haiden interrupts the conversation to tell Leona that they received reports of someone resembling her father Gaidel being spotted. Though they are unable to tell if this person is indeed Gaidel, Leona asks to take care of the investigation alongside Ralph and Clark, who tell Leona that they would have came with her regardless. Haiden agrees to their request and allows them to leave in search of Leona's father. The three journey deep into the mountains where Leona scouts ahead, though she has her comrades ready to help on standby. After the events of the tournament, Kyo Kusanagi, Iori Yagami and Chizuru Kagura meet at the Orochi seal in order to see if it has been tampered with. Chizuru confirms that she no longer senses any interference with the seal and that the risk of Orochi's revival has passed. Upon making sure that Orochi will be coming back anytime soon, Kyo and Iori prepare to fight in the latest chapter of their legendary feud. Chizuru is annoyed at the two for immediately ignoring the Orochi seal in favour of fighting, telling them that there's no way of knowing when someone may show up to try and free Orochi. Realising that her pleas are falling on deaf ears, a fed-up Chizuru agrees to let Kyo and Iori battle it out, saying that the feud is clearly important to the both of them. Kyo and Iori are surprised that Chizuru is so understanding, but she tells them that those were the conditions she agreed upon when forming the team. Chizuru reminds them one last time to not forget her warning of ignoring Orochi's seal before leaving. Now alone, the two finally agree to go all out and clash in a fiery blaze. Back home in Japan, Kyo's father Saishu Kusanagi and Kyo's former protege Shingo Ibuki wait outside the Kusanagi family dojo for Kyo. Shingo is concerned about Kyo not having returned yet and goes to check with Chizuru, but Saishu stops him, telling Shingo to believe in Kyo to make it back safe. Shingo agrees to remain strong and wait for Kyo, but almost immediately wails in sadness at not having seen his idol in so long. Sometime after his fight with Iori, Kyo returns to Japan where he meets with his girlfriend Yuki, who welcomes him home. Yashiro, Nanakase, Shermie and Chris wait in a dressing room as they prepare for a music gig as their band CYS. Chris comments on how much of a joke Otamaraga was and that coming to KOF was a waste of time, but Yashiro says that he was glad for the change in pace and an opportunity to beat up Iori, while Shermie says that she enjoyed the tournament and all the handsome guys that were involved. Chris reminds the two that this isn't a game and asks what they should do next, with Chris pitching them targeting Kusanada again. Yashiro is keen on the idea, but is concerned about the sacred treasures getting involved, especially Kyo, given his girlfriend Yuki is the latest reincarnation of the Kusanada. Shermie suggests getting Kyo and Yuki to break up, but Yashiro shoots the idea down as being pathetic, as Chris chimes in that he was being serious about the suggestion. The topic then turns to the magazine Shermie is reading, which is a magazine titled KOF for Girls that features an interview with Antonov. Yashiro is offended that Antonov is on the cover and not him, but Shermie tells him that he's the wrong type of attractive for that type of magazine. Chris then reveals that he was approached on the street and wonders if it was for a magazine, but says that he just turned them down, though he regrets not giving the band some PR. Yashiro then notes the time and tells the others that their break is over as they need to get back to making a new song. While Shermie is excited, Chris is nervous about performing again, but Yashiro tells him that he shouldn't be nervous due to them having time on their side as he harnesses his Orochi powers. The three then start their gig and proudly announce the return of CYS. At the Pow Pow Resort, Terry Bogard, Blue Mary, Andy Bogard and Mai Shiranui relax by the ocean as they wait for Joe Higashi to meet them, who is now nearly 3 hours late. As they wonder why he is so late, the four spot Joe, who arrives covered in bandages and carrying a crocodile. Upon being asked what happened to him, Joe reveals that Lily Kane agreed to go on a date with him. Wanting to impress her with flowers, Joe travelled to Thailand to pick the most exotic flower he could find and ended up fighting a crocodile which he brought back for Terry and the others. Joe then reveals the flower he got, which is a monstrous Venus flytrap that terrifies and shocks the others. Joe then receives a text message from Lily who tells him that she has to cancel their date as she needs to visit a friend who has ended up in the hospital. As a distraught Joe cannot believe his bad luck, he continues reading the message and discovers that Lily, not wanting to waste the movie tickets Joe bought, gave them to her brother Billy Kane, who wanted to meet with Joe and talk to him. Joe is stunned at Billy's incoming arrival, but soon becomes aware that Billy is standing behind him when his phone is shot by the gangster, who proceeds to beat Joe up. Later on, Joe lies in the hospital bed as he vows to Terry, Andy and Hwai Jae to not give up going on a date with Lily. Not long after, Mai and Yuri meet with Athena as they toast the conclusion of another KOF tournament. Athena interrupts their toast, however, to reveal that she actually didn't want to ask Mai and Yuri to join KOF with her, but instead wanted to recruit them in a pop group. Mai and Yuri are shocked at the idea of being in a pop group, but become increasingly concerned when Athena reveals the group to be a mixture of music, acrobatics and martial arts. Upon being given a list of insane stunts Athena wants them to perform, Mai and Yuri desperately try to get out of the pop group, but end up being roped in anyway as they eventually get ready to perform with Athena, with Yuri dressed as a clown and Mai dressed as a lion. Back in Southtown, Ryo, Robert, Yuri King, Takuma Sakazaki and Marco Rodriguez meet for a celebratory meal at the Kyokugen barbecue. Takuma and Robert talk about how business has picked up since the tournament, while Yuri is disheartened at having lost to Ryo, though she is happy that her brother's performance in the tournament will result in more money being earned by the restaurant. Ryo is silent as his friends and family gorge on the food, but soon stands up and leaves the restaurant without a word. Once outside, Ryo is joined by King, where he voices his frustrations at his family's newfound greed and gluttony, but accepts that their quality of life has increased thanks to the restaurant. Angry at how far they've fallen as martial artists, Ryo makes up his mind and charges back into the restaurant as Mr. Karate 2, to the shock and horror of the others. Using his darker persona to motivate his family to change their ways, Takuma organises a training regimen taught by Mr. Karate 2 for himself, Robert and Yuri, though he tells a shocked Marco to stay and look after the restaurant in their stead. Sometime later, Ryo, Robert and Yuri journey through a thick jungle on their way to their training grounds as they slowly realise that they are hopelessly lost. Blue Mary, Vanessa and Luong stand on a bridge at night as Mary looks up on the folklore origins of Otamaraga, discovering that her legend originates from the African hinterlands. Mary notes that it is possible that there is a being on a higher plane whose existence crosses with space and time, like Dolores, but Vanessa hand-waves the legends of Otamaraga as occultish, while Luong pokes fun at the two being unsettled by stories of the unknown. Mary asks Vanessa if she's done keeping an eye on Isla, to which Vanessa states that she has collected enough data on her after making contact with her after the tournament. The two then turn their attention to Luong, who reveal that they know Luong stole something at the end of the tournament. Luong is surprised the two saw her swipe something and reveals to have stolen Dolores' jewel. Luong reveals that stealing the jewel was the entire reason she joined the tournament and describes it as an amulet called the Sage's Eye that belonged to a great hermit of Africa. Luong explains about how the secret texts of the Qin dynasty pointed to the stone's existence and that Hein wants it at all costs in order to take down Geese Howard himself. Mary is shocked at the idea of Hein wanting to defeat Geese, but Luong refuses to say anything more. Instead, she gives Mary a pen drive with confidential intel on the Howard connection and Hein's plan, but throws it into the air for them to catch before jumping off the bridge. Upon catching it and looking below the bridge, Mary and Vanessa see Luong on a jet ski with none other than Hein. Luong bids the two farewell and asks them to play again sometime before Hein drives them away. Though she appears to have gotten away with everything, Mary hopes that Luong doesn't realise the Sage's eye she has is actually a fake, though Vanessa notes that she probably already knows there's a tracking device in it. The two share their relief at not being Luong's targets, saying that she terrifies them. With their work done for now, the two go off to celebrate having completed their jobs with a drink before going on a shopping trip around the city together. Team GAW, Yakov and Misha gather in Antonov's office as they celebrate the success of their wrestling promotion since joining KOF. Yakov gets emotional when thinking about the days following the previous tournament when himself and Antonov were scurrying through the backstreets of Russia on the run. Antonov tells the others that gaining back his championship was never their goal and that this is only the beginning for GAW. Following the tournament, Antonov begins recruiting many fighters of different styles into his promotion, which allows the organization to reach unheard levels of prosperity. However, during the peak of Ramon and King of Dinosaur's popularity, Dinosaur vanishes only to be replaced by the legendary T-Zoc. At the age of 60, Antonov retires from GAW and gives ownership of the promotion to a grown-up Misha. In his retirement, Antonov focuses on animal conservation with Zarina, building nature reserves across the world. These actions earn him praise from multiple world leaders, leading to him becoming a household name featured in textbooks. Eventually, an aged Yakov sits in the middle of a city by a fountain featuring statues of Antonov, Ramon and Dinosaur that were made to honour their legacy as the King of Fighters. However, this is all revealed to be simply Antonov's plan for the future and never actually happened. As Yakov and Misha marvel at Antonov's plan, Ramon and Dinosaur begin to wonder if they're going to be alright with Antonov as their president. On the side of a road in a barren desert, a tearful Kula Diamond tells Cronin and Angel that she is ready to return home to Kadash and the others. Cronin tells Kula to be quiet as they already called her babysitters to come pick her up, though Angel doesn't think they're going to show up. A car soon pulls up, however, as Kula is delighted to see her old Nest's handlers Foxy and Diana. After checking to see if Kula is hurt, the two question Cronin and Angel on what their plan is and demand they return Kula to them unharmed. Cronin reminds the two of his demands, keeping the ransom money in exchange for Kula's safe return. Foxy and Diana tell the two that they have no problems with their demands, just with the both of them, but Angel tells them to stop living in the past. Diana and Foxy become angered at Cronin and Angel, but Kula stops the four from attacking each other. Kula tells Angel and Cronin that she hates the two as well, but still thinks that they're telling the truth before asking Foxy and Diana if they can just leave already. Kula bids Cronin farewell as she leaves with Foxy and Diana, but Cronin stops them and hands the ransom money over to Kula. Cronin tells Kula that no self-respecting adult takes money from a kid, and says that he wants Kula to take the money and get some ice cream. Angel angrily demands the money instead, but Cronin tells her that she deserves it less than Kula. Cronin tells Kula, Foxy and Diana to leave, while Angel pokes fun at Kula one last time, telling her that she hopes she gets brain freeze. After Kula and the others leave, Angel asks Cronin why he gave the money away, as he was hoping to use it as part of his escape fund. Cronin says he gave them the money as part of damage control to make sure none of them snitched on the two, to which Angel says that he's really changed. She then calls him K49, revealing Cronin to actually be the infamous Nest's creation from the 2001 tournament that slipped into obscurity following the cartel's destruction. Cronin asks Angel if she's disappointed he's not immature anymore, but she tells her old friend that she doesn't care as long as the two are having fun. The two then plan their next trip, with Cronin shooting down joining a pro wrestling circuit in favour of going on a road trip around the world, wanting to see where the road takes them. The two eventually fill up on gas before deciding to head off into the sunset together. Meanwhile, Kadash, Maxima and Whip gather outside a diner where they believe Kula to be held hostage based off a threatening email from Cronin. The three are unsure if they should rush into the building and save Kula, as they can't take the risk of not knowing what Cronin might have planned. As they discuss what to do, the three hear a shriek from Kula coming inside and storm the diner. Once inside, the three are shocked to discover Kula eating ice cream while being watched over by Diana and Foxy, and that Kula's shriek was from her almost dropping her ice cream. Whip asks them where Cronin is, as Foxy informs them that Cronin called the two up and gave Kula back, despite them thinking it was going to be a trap. Kula greets Whip and the others like nothing has happened, as Kadash fumes over them being messed around by Cronin and Angel. Foxy inquires what happened between Kadash and Kula to make her run away, telling them to make sure it doesn't happen again. Maxima reveals that the argument started after Kadash and Maxima ended up breaking a promise to take Kula to a theme park multiple times due to them being distracted by hunting down Nest's remnants. Upon Kadash telling her they never promised anything, Kula left. Kadash tries to defend his stance, asking Kula if she thinks him and Maxima will fit in at the theme park, but Whip tells him to stop being mean. Whip tells Cooler to not run off again, as everyone was worried about her. Cooler asks if K-Dash was worried too, but K-Dash's attempts to blow off his concern is ruined by Maxima, who tells Cooler that K-Dash ran into the diner frantically when he thought that she was in trouble. Cooler ignores K-Dash's attempts to disprove Maxima's claims as she excitedly confirms that they're all friends again, causing K-Dash to give up saying otherwise. Maxima joins in with Cooler's ice cream celebration as Whip radios into Ralph to inform him that they found Cooler but couldn't make contact with Cronin. Soon after, K-Dash, Maxima, Whip and Cooler go to a theme park together as K-Dash refuses Maxima's offer for some ice cream. Sometime later, Whip returns to the Hyden fleet where she and Hyden bid farewell to Isla and Dolores. Hyden and Dolores thank each other for their help in achieving their goal of sealing Reverse in Otamaraga, as Isla tells the two to hurry up their thanks, to the humour of Ralph and Clark. Dolores tells the others that she must return to her village as she has kept her son waiting long enough. The others are shocked when they realise that she means Kukri is her son, but Dolores soon clarifies that they are not actually related by blood. Hyden offers to enlist Isla as part of his unit, which causes the other Ikari warriors to start planning her new training regimen and place in the unit. Isla quickly tells them that she has no plans of joining them and just wants to return home. Dolores tells Isla and the Ikaris that she was honoured to fight with them all and that if trouble arises, she will come to lend her strength. Isla then awkwardly thanks everyone for having her back before bidding them all farewell. As she flies back home in a helicopter, Isla tells the Ikari soldier with her to hold off on returning home to Chile as she wishes to take a detour to China first, presumably to meet with Shunei. Upon arriving in China, Isla scrolls through the photos that she took while on the Ikari fleet before telling Amanda that maybe relying on adults will be too bad. In a marketplace in Shanghai, Shen Wu and Duo Long sit at a table as they read a letter they received from Elizabeth telling them that she'll be arriving with Ash Crimson soon. Duo Long and Shen Wu are now able to remember their memories of Ash and everything that happened to them, with Shen Wu describing the memories coming back as if he'd forgot them. Duo Long says that his memories are the same, but interrupts the conversation upon seeing Elizabeth and Ash approaching them. Ash greets his old teammates for the first time in years and sits down with them where he starts discussing food. Shenwu starts to laugh at Ash's antics, telling him that he hasn't changed at all. Duo Long remembers that Ash had promised they'd eat crab together on his tab after the 2003 tournament, but Ash conveniently forgets promising that. Elizabeth stops Ash from ordering the crab anyway by reminding him that they came to report on the current situation. Ash tells Elizabeth that they should celebrate their victory in having Otamaraga be stopped, though he says that he wishes Kukri could have joined them. Shenwu jokes that Kukri probably got sick of Ash and Elizabeth and left, but Elizabeth tells him that they saw him off at the airport as he headed home. Ash cryptically says that it's not like they'll never see Kukri again, but tells the others to unwind as large plates of crab are delivered. Kukri checks his phone in Africa to see an image of Ash eating crab. He is soon joined by Dolores, who asks if Kukri has said goodbye to his friends. Kukri discusses the futility of saying goodbye and tells Dolores that they aren't his friends, to which Dolores agrees, saying that Elizabeth is too courteous for him and Ash probably wouldn't call him a friend either. Together the two start to head home where they hope to live a life of peace. Not long after, Ash and Elizabeth return to their home of France where they sit in the same flower field they played in as children. Elizabeth tells Ash that it's good to have him back, as Ash thanks her for all she did for him. Shunei, Meitenkun and Benimaru return home to China where they greet Tung Fu Ru. Upon being told of what happened at the tournament, Tung notes that his hunch about what would happen was correct. Benimaru tells Tung that Shunei and Meitenkun killed it in the tournament, with Shunei having learned to master his power and Meitenkun managing to stay awake for once. Shunei tells Meitenkun and Benimaru that he's grateful to the both of them and apologises for making them go through all the trouble of fighting Reverse and Otamaraga, as well as Tung for making them worry. Tung is glad to see the two have grown in spirit, as Benimaru teases Shunei. Tung Fu becomes solemn, however, as he tells Shunei that he is now ready to hear the truth of how he came to be in his care. Tung reveals that Shunei was born in a mountain village not far from Tung's home to young parents. However, from the age of 2, Shunei's tantrums would cause severe destruction to his parents' home, with even livestock and children being wary of him. Upon Shunei accidentally destroying his family's home, Tung heard of him and offered his parents to take Shunei in. Shunei is confused as he was originally led to believe that he was abandoned by his parents. Tung explains that had he told Shunei this at a more tender age, he would have wanted to see his parents, which Tung could not allow, as learning he brought harm to his parents would have thrown chaos into Shunei's heart, which Tung also couldn't allow. Shunei is silent while he processes the information, as Benimaru says that at least Shunei can now visit his parents whenever he wants. Shunei states however that he wouldn't know what to say to them and admits that he still has a long way to go before he can allow himself to see them. Shunei then tells Tung that he wishes to travel the world with just Meitenkun, as he feels like with Tung and now Benimaru, someone is always looking after them, and that they need to learn how to stand on their own 2 feet. Tung is proud of how much his disciples have grown, and asks them when they plan to depart. Despite Meitenkun wanting to leave after a good night's sleep, Shunei wants to leave now, to which Tung accepts and tells them to grab their things. The two excitedly make plans to visit Japan and meet all the fighters they can, as Benimaru tells them that the world is bigger than Japan and to go out into the world and burn the whole thing into their memories. Tung tells Shun'ei and Meizenkun that they've become so strong that he barely recognizes them and to take in all the world has to show them before coming back safe and sound. Shun'ei, Meizenkun and Benimaru soon depart China, where the two eventually split off from Benimaru. On their own in the big city, the two marvel at the size of it as Shun'ei doubts the two will get bored in a place like this. With the tournament having wrapped up, Haiden sits in his office as he finishes typing up his report on the Reverse incident. Several hours after Reverse and Otamaraga's defeat, gravity anomalies observed all over the world stabilize one after another before vanishing after 48 hours. Haiden reflects on the teachings Dolores informed him about and uses them to reflect on the events that transpired. Haiden goes over how Reverse supposedly appears at the end of the world to collect souls for a greater god. The powerful emotions and souls are then converted to pure energy, which are needed to open a gate to another world which Otamaraga uses to appear in their world to destroy all and usher in an age of restoration. Haiden thinks about Dolores' theory on why Reverse's awakening and Otamaraga's appearance occurred. Dolores talked about a multiverse where worlds diverged on the crossroads of choice and reverse phenomena caused by retrocausality, but the theory was too much for Haiden to swallow. He observes a picture of Ash Crimson and Elizabeth Blanctorche from the tournament and notes how Dolores' theory lines up perfectly with the abnormalities they've witnessed over the past few years. Haiden wonders if the threat of Otamaraga has truly passed, or if another entity will appear in their world. All that he is certain of is that the disaster was averted this time round, and that they must make precautions so that if such a threat occurs in the future, they'll be able to handle it. Haiden then closes his report, signalling the end of the King of Fighters 15 tournament.
We await your return, warrior.